found mathematical problem representing boy and he could make a torpedo. Then he started simple questions such as asking him to bring a stick and says what properties he sees in the stick, such as a length. And then he asked him to break that stick in the middle, which he does. And then another half of one part which he broke, he was asked to break in the middle, which he did. Then he asked to relate one broken piece with another broken piece and another broken piece. So the boy who did not know previously to say anything about length or breadth, half, quarter, full, these ideas were coming out of the boy. Thus he could demonstrate to the whole company of mathematicians, logicians, that this logic is inherent in us. We already know it. If it is not there, you will not be able to illuminate it to another person through your talks or demonstrations. Again, Bergson says, all you can do is to create a situation in which what is conceptually known to you can be put into a new design of composition. And if you do not have the basic concept, you will not understand the composition also. But you can go on elaborating one idea into many ideas. And the scientist, the religious person, the storyteller, the poet, the artist, whoever is put in a situation to express herself or himself has to begin somewhere. And then go on building up with simple notions that are already implied in it. And it is just like making a cathedral. Before making a cathedral, you should know what a cottage is. You should know how a beam can be supported by two pillars and how four beams can be supported by four pillars, and then how a roof can be fitted on it. And an elaboration of this will finally give you the secret of making a Gothic cathedral or a Romanesque cathedral, and then you can compare it with a Byzantine cathedral. So you go into complications beginning with simple things. Thus in Chattambi Swamy's this book, Scheme for Non-Dual Philosophy, he is presenting as a scheme. And a scheme is like a plan which you can elaborate. or you can have a simple part of it examined and become very certain about it. So if I ask you to think of a point, a mathematical point. A mathematical point has no length, no breadth, no circumference. It is one-dimensional. And how can I put a point on this paper? This paper, if I look only at the surface of it, it is a two-dimensional paper. Just length and breadth. If I take a paper into my hand, it becomes three-dimensional. So on a two-dimensional surface, if we have to put a one-dimensional point, you cannot do it. You can imagine, even when you imagine it, we make a mistake because we have seen points drawn with ink or points marked with a needle. We are not asking here to look at the image of an image. A one-dimensional point. Having found it is difficult, you just put a dot and say, let us consider this a point. Is it a point? No. It is only a symbol of a point. It's a symbolic point. So to make it sure, you put here letter P. You say, let us call this point P. Then you mark another point. And suppose you want to reach from this point to that point. What should you do? You have to take into account all the possible points between this point and that point. So your pen has to move from point to point. And you come there. Suppose you are asked, what is in between 2 points? In between 2 points is an interspace. Space between 2 points. What is our supposition here? Our supposition here is that a point has no breadth and that it has a location. 2 points cannot be in the same location. Then it is only 1 point. And if a separate identity is given to another point, you have to mark that point apart from the first point. That means there comes interspace between points. So these 2 points, when you connect it, and if you decide that it should be the shortest distance between 2 points, and I say the shortest distance between these 2 points is a curved line. Our mind rejects it. Our mind cannot accept it. The shortest distance between 2 points must be a straight line. So we decide that it is a straight line. And suppose we study astrophysics, astrology, and about space not on a piece of paper, but space between the far off star, one star and another star. And if we draw a line from that star to the other star, will the line be a straight line? Scientists say no. It has to be a curved line. So what our ordinary logic will refuse, just on hearing that between 2 points the shortest line is a straight line, and afterwards when we hear that in the infinitude of space you cannot have a straight line, then you have to learn another kind of mathematics also. Similarly, Chattambi Swamy is presenting here that a reality, a truth which is colorless, odorless, formless, without body, contentless, when it can mirror itself in another entity which is equally false, equally unreal, equally unimaginable, our mind rejects it. But if you take any science or any religion to enter into it, first you have to pass through a paradoxical situation. Take for instance the Jewish text, the Pentateuch. We have the Genesis coming as the first chapter of it. And in the Genesis we read, in the beginning there was nothing. There was only darkness. Immediately after saying that nothing, it said there is only darkness. And on the darkness, the Spirit of God dwelt. They never said there was a God. But now they say, the God dwelt, the Spirit of God dwelt on the surface. Then he said, let there be light. And there came light. Now suppose you put the question, in which language is it? When God said, let there be light, in which language did he say? Did he say it with his tongue? Has he a body? Has he an articulating system? Has he a larynx? Did he say it with a voice or only by thought? Has he a central nervous system? All these questions are irrelevant. You are not supposed to put these questions. It's blasphemy. If you put these questions, you will be chucked out of the synagogue. You cannot answer. That means for the first 7 days when God was going on, we should just sit there nodding our heads and put not put any question. And then suppose God, so God has created man, he found man alone, so he was put into an anesthesia, and when he was sleeping, a rib was taken out of him, and out of which God fashioned the woman. Suppose we ask the question, had God run out of material to make a woman all by herself? Why should it be taken from the man at all? There was a scarcity of material. Was it what happened? Then, when you take a person out of another person, what is the relationship between the two persons? If out of a man a woman is made, is the woman daughter of that man or sister of that man? And if they are to live as husband and wife, is it permissible for a man to marry his own daughter or a man to marry his own sister? Is it not incest? So you should not put in any inconvenient questions. Yeah, just keep quiet. Otherwise you will be chucked out of the religious class. So if religion is not acceptable to you because you have always to believe whatever they say, then you go to the science class. You go to the science class and put the same question, how did this world come? They said there was a big bang. When? Oh, that is 15 billion years ago there was a big bang. When the what banged? There was a bang. Of what? Oh, that was the bang of the primary substance. Substance? What was it made of? Oh, everything which we see here came from the Big Bang. If that is so, the stuff with which the moon is made, the sun is made, the earth is made, are they also not distributed in me? In me there is already a homogeneous assemblage of all the things in the world. That is the same as Socrates saying, we already possess within us, inhere within us everything, and therefore it is a matter of recognizing. The scientist also expects us. Okay, we have put a point. Okay, I put another point because it has become clumsy. And we have made the point has become a line now. We don't call it a point anymore, we call it a line. What is a line composed of? Several points. And suppose I turn this line here, then for the first time the idea of direction comes. It's a line. This is one direction, and from this point another direction comes. So when two directions comes, automatically angle is formed. So we never thought that a point was going to present to us an angle. An angle came. Now suppose you join this and make a hypotenuse here. It is no more an angle, it's a triangle. And now we have three angles. And the sum of it is 180 degrees. Did we have that knowledge that from a point lines will come and angles will come and triangle will come, then it will be 180 degrees? No. This is all that Chattambi Swamy also did. He went on bringing out the possibilities that were inherent in whatever was given to us prior to us. And posteriorly, these things come up. So now you are intrigued by this. Then you say, this triangle has a base here, at the apex here. Suppose I make another 2 lines here. I put only 2 lines. So what happens is a square comes. And 2 right-angled triangles which are put adjacent to each other with one base up and the other base down, that brings you a square. You are not thinking of the square at all. Like this, that's why I asked you, did you study Euclid? From one single point, he went on elaborating, and finally, he arrived at the world of geometry of endless possibility. Now today, when you make a cathedral, a temple, a home, a house, a museum, these are all applied there. The applications which are all emerged from a single point. But a boy who is going to the class, he does not understand why he is learning geometry or why he is learning algebra. So we put here P, A, B, C, D. Now if I want to abstract this figure and put it here, I have only to say A, B, C. I don't have to draw it again. So what happened? We made with an abstraction algebra out of geometry. So certain letters can stand as a symbol for geometry. What is algebra made of? In algebra, there is no need for a line at all. What is geometry made of? Geometry is made of form. So this is what we call and this is what we call name. So the Vedantin says there was no need for God to sit there and say, let there be light. But what automatically emerged is a name and a form. Every form has a name. We give a name. Form is presented from the other side. Name is presented from our side. So the form is a perception and the name is nominal conception. So concept is formed within the mind of a person, and perception is the geometrical arrangement of points. So we have artists. So he puts a tray with a cone and a line, a coniferous tree comes. Then he brings another kind of a tree. So any geometrical, anything which is here can be ultimately reduced to a geometrical figure. In this geometrical figure which you are making, see, when I first went to learn drawing and painting, My master taught me how a man's contour face can be all reduced into points, and then the points can be joined and you get a geometrical figure. And in that geometrical figure, you can bring the nearest likeness to a person. So we had to think of a regular geometrical figure and an irregular geometrical figure. Nature itself prefers regular geometrical figures. Suppose there is a wall here and it is somewhat like this, and light comes through it, and from a distance when you look at it you find it only as a straight line. Why? It is a lot of trouble for the eye to see an irregular thing than a regular thing. So all these little bumps here are disregarded by the eye unless you go close and look at it. And suppose there is a hole in the roof like that, and sunlight is passing through that, and the light falls here, the light won't fall like this. Light will just be like this. It makes a perfect circle. So all this shows we are not seeing the exact world as it is. Half of it is from the side of God, so to say. The other half is our fashioning. Our fashioning is what I call the name, and God's fashioning is what is called the form, geometry and algebra. So man needs two languages, a language that pertains to form, geometry, and as that comes before we give a name to it, this is called proto-language. And then we give words, name and words, that becomes a meta-language. So we have proto-language and we have meta-language. And using these two languages, we have to explain this world. So we cannot immediately come to all this, because it is the formless. Slowly the form is evolving. You see the sperm and the egg. When the sperm is getting into the egg and then the egg is covering it up, this wall is broken off. It becomes one cell. And then some kind of an idea of something being going to be constricted comes, and it comes together, then it becomes two cells. And if the cells are coming in the same uniform manner, how do you look when you are coming out of your mother's womb? Just as the ball which a Gandhari brought out. You would have been a big ball with so many balls inside it. But that's not like that. Something is there to control it. And it is that controlling principle he gave, that there is a numerical factor, a quantifying, and the quantifying changes the quality. So quantitative change brings qualitative change. If you ask why Chattambi Swamy wanted to put bring in a triad first, a triple principle first. Because suppose there is one chicken here, two chicken, three chicken, four chicken, five chicken. Which is the first chicken here? You can say this is the first chicken, or you can say this is the first chicken. Nothing compels you to think of that as the first chicken. You can have a preference for the middle chicken to be first, and that to be the second. But when they are serially arranged, we count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the fourth chicken. This is the second chicken. How do we come to the idea of the second chicken and the fourth chicken? Because, before our eyes, they are put in a certain order. This order comes out of disorder. Then all the chickens were running around. There was no such order, but they all come and line up, order comes. Even in counting this, you cannot count all the 5 chickens at once. From here you have to count and go from one chicken to another chicken. So there is a passage of time to go from this end to that end. This is a very important factor. So this quantifying, which is taken here as a very serious subject, not to frighten you, and not to frighten you, but to be very realistic in putting an order into this. Swamiji first took one, which cannot be drawn. Let us but attempt it. And suppose you are drawing it like this. Where will it be? Where can it end? If you are putting it as a spiral, it never ends. It goes into infinitude. If you say Brahman, then you think some Indian stuff is coming. He only said that this cannot stop. Brahman means that which increases unendingly. That's all. Just as with the Big Bang, and if there is an expanding universe, what is the end of it? It cannot end. So it is called Brahman. So Indians call it Brahmanda Kadaham. Anda means egg. This ever increasing number of eggs which are seen here, Brahmanda Kadaham. So first, here mentions that. But every form to be comprehended, there has to be a consciousness to which the form is presented. And so this is presented here to a mirroring image, agency. So first he was only saying one, Brahman. Then he brought in a second entity and called it nature or Prakriti. So one has become two, just as we began with 1 point, came to another point, 2. And if 1 and 2 is there, there should be a principle which make the one manifest, the second manifest, and relating the 1 and 2. What are our studies after all? Our studies are nothing but the study of an interest, a value, and the relationship between one value and another value, one interest and another interest. First, my interest is to know. Second, my interest is to tell Anil, hey Anil, I have seen this. So relate to another person whom you love. So now 3 things have come. So this is how from 1 we go into 2, 2 to 3. And what are these 3? I am recapitulating. The 3 is, I am asking you, what is this? What is this? What is this? You know what connotes that the quality of something is to be mentioned. This, you know, is making a reference to something. As you do not know to what I am referring, this is not distinguished, this is not discerned, this is not pointed out. So what is the reference to? You have no idea. So you have to say, I do not know. What is this? I do not know. What do you not know? I do not know what this is. That is why in F.H. Bradley's Appearance and Reality, he says, this is different from this because of the what of this and the what of this. You think he is playing with words? No, Sukya. What is this? No doubt at all. What is this? This is a pen. Why this is specified now? This is specified. We say this is a pen. Because we said it has a blue cap, a grey body, something is written on it. We have used it before as a pen, so we say this is a pen. But the Vedantin says you are a confused person. Look at it and say again, what is this? Again you say it is a pen made of plastics and a little metal. Wrong. What is this? This is only a form presented to you because you are seeing the light falling on it. So what do you see actually? Not the pen. You see only a streak of light. And where you do not see the pen but the chair, that is also another streak of light. Putting all this together, what do you see? You see only the unending entity, Brahman. So the Upanishads say, Prajnanam Brahma. What you seem to see is the Brahman. So now we began with this, and on examination we find that we are not very sure about this. But is this also untrue to say this is a pen? No, no. It has a validity in our transactional life. So whatever is specifically pointed out that has a transactional value, what is universally pointed out, it has an ultimate value. And in between the ultimate value and the universal value, there can be several mistakes. So when you come to study Vedanta, what are you studying? We are studying the forms of error. Why do you study the forms of error? So that we may know what truth is. It is said that only by ascertaining the false, you know what the truth is. By rejecting. Suppose I say, oh, look here. Here is David. The David we read in the Bible, it is the same person which is sitting here. Then everybody looks at him and says, no, this fellow cannot be David. Because we know Dr. Pillai and this is the Anil, son of Pillai, and it cannot be David. So we reject it. We reject the untruth statement. In Vedanta, the untruth statement is given a speciality because what we first comprehend is the untruth. And it's only after a lot of elimination we come to a true statement. So two extreme points are taken to illustrate the fact that there are several gradations of falsehood. Some children are playing with tools. See, in Hawaii I went to a bookstall and there I saw a very tiny envelope. When I opened the envelope, in the tiny envelope was a very tiny book. When I opened the tiny book, there was a picture of a flower with eyes and nose and little mouth. And the next page, there was another picture of the same flower, also as a child. So it has 10 pages with the 10 pages of this same figure, flower, put as a human figure. So I bought it. I have a little friend in Trivandrum. Her name is Uma. She is barely 5-year-old. So I sent this to Uma as a present. So last week I had a letter from her saying, my Swamy, the friend you sent from there came. I gave her the name Pancha. So this flower which is illustrated like a child, this little child called it Pancha. A name is given. I offered tea and coffee to it. It did not take either. Thinking it was hungry, I offered chapati. It did not eat. I asked why you do not eat. I gave you tea and coffee and chapati. Why you do not eat? It did not say anything. That is the response I got back from sending this. For us, these are all lies. It's not at all a child. It has no name. Panja is not its name, and it should not be. You should not respect it to your coffee. But this is called the Bala Buddhi, the child's mind. So there is an idempotency. That means you project on it a humanization. Just as we have painted gods and goddesses, the child has painted it. That is a false image. This we call the pradibhasika. Yesterday I was reading the biography of Khalil Gibran. So this lifelong friend of Khalil Gibran, when he heard the telephone that Gibran is seriously ill, admitted in the hospital, he rushed to the hospital. Finally came and found out the room where he was. And he was on a bed, not dead. And he stood by him, asked him questions, but there was no recognition. The child recognized a non-entity into an entity. Here is an actual man, lifelong friend, standing before him and putting very pertinent questions, but there is no recognition. Here it is as if this friend has become a non-entity for Gibran. So treating an entity as a non-entity, the other is treating a non-entity as an entity. These are the two cardinal mistakes which man makes. And it is in between this we have to arrive at a norm of truth. So any study without evolving a norm to measure truth is no study at all. So it's very pertinent that you put questions. You should put questions. That means you are asking, otherwise what is your criterion of truth? Show me. Then alone I understand it. For that you should also know how a criterion can be recognized. When you say A is A, what is the criterion? Axiom is the criterion. It is axiomatic thinking. A is A. There is a self-evidence in it. The opposite is rejected. That is why John Stuart Mill made a distinction between logical truth and psychological truth. Logical truth is your mind refuses to accept the opposite of it. Just as I said that if you want to say the shortest distance between 2 points is a curved line, your mind rejects it. With less than 2 sides you can form a triangle, you cannot believe it. So these are called logical necessities. Psychological necessity is habitually we have been seeing a certain thing and therefore we think that there is a relationship between the first and the second. You put the kettle on the fire and the kettle boils. So you think there is a relationship between the kettle and the fire. Hume does not accept it. He says tomorrow you can put your kettle on the fire and the water can freeze. You can think of it, you can imagine it. Nobody stops you from imagining how the water is frozen. Difficult to accept, but you have to accept it. So Bertrand brings another kind. He said there is a fact true and a logic true. So somebody is sending a telegram or calling telephone to home and instructs the wife. Two guests are coming and they need clothes to change. So please keep clothes for them to change. So the woman, she takes her husband's coat and pant and underpant and everything for two people and kept there. People came, then only one can use it, the other is a woman. So they are not two men, one is a man, the other is a woman. So the other person needs a skirt and not a pant. So this is what he calls fact true and logic true. To avoid this kind of confusions, right from the beginning, in this scheme of non-dual philosophy of Chattambi Swamy, he is helping us to build up a methodological way of finding out valid testimonies so that your argument will never go wrong on your way. That is why he has numerically begun from first to second and then to 3 and keeping the 3 there. He is now bringing a ground for the 3 to operate. So suppose you are wanting to play ping pong, but you should have a table on which you can strike it. That's a stable ground. Similarly, for the mathematical game of 1, 2, 3 to play, a frame is prepared which is 5-folded. That is why he brought Akasha, which is not a thing, it is not a non-thing. There is no place where you say here is Akasha or here is not Akasha. It has the quality of both existence and non-existence. It looks like a dome when it is not a dome. It looks as if it has a blue color when it has no color. So it falls under the category of real and yet illusory. Even if Einstein comes and looks at the sky, he will also see it only as blue. All his intelligence will not help him to see the sky without its blue color. So what does it mean? There is a generic possibility of error. A generic possibility of error. Any person endowed with intelligence, they will all find this erroneous. So Chattambi Swamy here first of all mentioned when the Akhanda Samashti Chaitanyam is Sat, it is called Maya. There is a universal understanding in which there is a universal error, and that is called Maya. And when it comes to specific mind, when everybody is seeing only a clear blue sky, one man is seeing also in it a Gandharva, that means a spirit. Or he sees in it a flower, just as when we are seeing in the clouds various kinds of images. That is not generic. It is a specific error. So in contrast to the generic error, he brought in the specific error called avidya. And one person does not see at all. So there is a maya, there is an avidya, and there is also a tamasi. That means you are infected by darkness. You cannot see at all. When two people see, you do not see it at all. So I went to an Australian house, husband and wife, only three of us, and just as I showed this pencil and asked what it is, I showed a book and asked, what do you see? The husband says, I see the book. Wife also says, I see the book. I said, you are both telling lies, and you see but only the light. The husband thought for 1 minute. He said, I got it. I got it. Just as Anil says, I got it. Woman says, what did you get? What he says is right. I'm seeing only the light. He said, nonsense. You two men, chauvinistic pigs, you are against a woman. So they became very angry. And it was time for dinner, 8 o'clock, and it was 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30. The woman was not giving any food. We said, two people said, you don't see the reality, and I don't see the reality. Make your dinner if you want. So this can put us to such kind of anger, tamas. So you see, you don't see at all. You belong to the category called tamasi. So after bringing these three, and then Swamy was telling us, from the subtle, when we go to the gross, how the pure becomes first of all impure. So that is what I was drawing here for today's. Here first I put 5 columns. And I made each column divided into 2. And then the subdivision is again divided into 4. So here 1 main division and 4 subdivisions. That means 5 are in each column. So the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air and akasha, first they manifest as pure qualities called tanmatras, just like atoms. But no, atom is a thing, but this is not, this is a thing in itself called tanmatra. And in the tanmatra it is not the object that is first presented. There is a purpose for which philosophy is given. And this purpose of the philosophy is, when you learn this, you will get into a certain efficiency by which you can solve your life's problems. And if it does not help you to solve your problems, this philosophy of no use. So even in the creation you find there is a teleological purpose. Teleo means telescope, out there, in the distance, there, in the future. Logical, teleological, a logic which will take you to the end of time to arrive at a certain purpose. Your nose is made not to put your specs. Your specs are so, the glasses are, the frame is so designed because of your nose. Your legs are made not to put socks, but the socks are made to suit your legs. Thus you find everything in this world has a relevancy to something which has gone before it, and what has gone before will also have a relevance into what is to come. That is why I said, if you study embryology before studying physiology, you will come to know why you are of such an anatomical structure or a physiological structure, why your eye is so made with a lens which is very much like a bird's eye lens, spherical, so that a whole span of space can be converged and brought to a minimum space in your cornea, which can be projected back into space as a whole horizon of visible things. That means the evolution of the eye, which is happening right in your mother's womb, where there is no sun, there is no space, there is nothing to see, and yet it has evolved to that perfection that as soon as you jump out of your mother's womb, open your eyes, and the world is there, and this is made quite ready for you to perceive it. But unfortunately, in the West, everything is taught by just looking at the object out there, forgetting that it is a person who is looking at that object, and there are already inner arrangements in that person for that object to be seen. Suppose you are asleep, and when you are asleep, if I come and say, call Anil, Anil, your ears are not plugged. Your ears are just as you are before you are sleeping. I have to call 10 times, louder and louder, and then I have to shake. Then the response comes. What does it mean? There is an inner lock of your ear, inner lock of your eye, inner lock of your mind, inner lock of everything in you. First that has to open before the outer faculty starts functioning. This is where the Indian psychology varies, differs from Western psychology. You think stimulus comes and then you respond. No, first of all you are ready to respond, and then stimulus is accepted, not before that. It's a very major difference in the Western psychology and Eastern psychology. Well, then I have shown how these are the first 5 are principles, and then we see how they become quintuplicated. Each 5 gets into each one. Therefore, you get a physical material to work with. And then how, say, each one has a symbolic figure given, etc. Into more elaborations we go. And this is a big book. I have begun only just at the very beginning, and it will take a lifetime for one to understand it, but it doesn't matter. There are many lives. Okay, thank you very much. I think less trouble for you today. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avasishyate. Did you understand what I said? You see, this is one trick of Indian people. They close their eyes and they mumble something as if a very beautiful prayer is given. You see. So before I, yes, do you see the zero there, circle? Before I put the zero there, the zero was in my mind. And suppose this is a symbol of what was in my mind. So I say that zero is zero. Then if I am asked to make another zero, looking at it, I make this zero. This zero. Then I say it is from that zero's idea, this zero came. 0 plus 0 is equal to 0. And then I say from this 0, if I take away this 0, still 0 remains with the same value. Okay? That's in English. When you put it in Sanskrit, you say Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avasishyate. That 0 is of value of sad 0, conceptual 0. And this 0 is a perceptual 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. And so on. Why do I say it? Just say ultimately you don't come to anything new than you already knew. Several parents are here, so I should say all these parents are trying to make their children, not your parent, Indians with Hindu background, Hindu culture, Hindu heritage, etc., etc. And if you ask them, do you know what that is? They think it is just like the Christian calls himself a Christian, a Muslim calls himself a Muslim. The Hindu should call himself a Hindu. This is not at all right. Indians have a heritage in which there is no need to believe at all. No article of faith is there. If you find a relevancy of an irresistible logic, then alone you have to accept it. And that irresistible logic is a mathematical factor. And therefore, the only part of the world where man can live free is India. And when they see how others are living in cages, they want to put their children also into cages. Very sad. Very sad. Say, for instance, they teach Upanishad, Ishavasi Upanishad. You say, we have now taught our children Ishavasi Upanishad. What did you teach? Now they can recite it. What do they recite? Ishavasyamidam sarvam etkinja jagatyam jagad tena tektena punjitha magratha kasya siddhanam. Have they understood it? Have you understood it? If you understand this, it says he who sees, even in a small iota of a thing, the full representation of the total monitoring force of this universe, then there is nothing for you to possess as your own, identify as yours. Total freedom comes to you. Are you willing to give this total freedom to your son, to your daughter? Have you experienced this total freedom any time? Don't you make comparison of you with someone else? Yes, then you have not studied Ishavasya Upanishad. You are making only a false claim. So this is what I want to tell our friends here. I went to, there's a very famous place in Kerala called Guruvayur. And then I saw a big bhajan going on there. And so one lady was praising the Lord. Radhe Krishna Madhusudana, Radhe Krishna Madhusudana. So I asked that lady, will you please stop that? Why? I am praising the Lord. I said, I have difficulty to sit here when you praise like that. What is the difficulty? Radhe Sham. Radha is a woman who is full of love for Krishna, called Sham. Radhe Sham, then you are speaking of the beautiful, wonderful love feeling which a lover is having for the beloved. And next word you say is Madhusudana. Madhu is a demon. Sudana means killing him. So thinking, immediately transferring your mind from a love situation to one of fighting and killing, I cannot put these two together in my mind. So either you give all these fighting praises separately and all these loving praises